have the Ayatollah of fantasy rock and roller with us today, Adam Rank. How you doing, Rank?
They look great in person, and I just can't wait till next year where we can pack it full of 25,000.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I didn't know it was Ball Guys Day. It was being ranked. I mean, how can you lose?
This is the Dynasty Vipers VipersCast.
And welcome to the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast, powered by Fantasy Points Media Group. Today we are bringing you one of CBS's finest, Jamey Eisenberg. How you doing, Jamey?
Doing okay. I don't know if I'd call myself CBS's finest, but I appreciate the kind words.
Yeah, we throw that out for everyone, so we're off to a good start already. No, but seriously, Jamey, you are one of the best in the business. I've had the pleasure of having many people on this show and people I've talked to that have the utmost respect for you and what you've been able to do so far. So you are one of the finest in the fantasy football industry, not just CBS. And by the way, great family of guys you got over there. We've had Dave on, we've had Heath on. You know, they're great people, humble, and I think that kind of speaks to everyone on that on the CBS Fantasy Show. They're all together, so it's glad to have you on here.
Yeah, thank you so much. Very, very nice to hear that, and obviously Dave and Heath are fantastic. So lofty standards to live up to if those guys have already been on the show and done a great job.
Great answer.
And we got Adam coming on like next month, so we'll see where we got the bar set pretty high already. So we got Adam coming on, but he's one of the best in the business as well. So
yes,
yeah, we're looking forward to that. Now, this show here, basically, we talk a little bit of football right off the get-go just to kind of break the seal as we go on. So let's just talk about one of these recent articles you kind of put out here. You have your Jamey's breakout players at each position here. And who were you looking at the quarterback position early on?
Jalen Hurts is, I think the industry's kind of favorite breakout quarterback, and for obvious reasons based on what he did in the 3.5 starts that he made. But, just looking at the 3 starts that he was able to get last year when Carson Wentz was struggling, and, you project that over what a full season can be. And, the rushing numbers obviously are what stand out. And the hope is that he can improve as a passer. But, if Devontae Smith is as good as advertised and Jalen Hurts gets a full offseason to take over as the starter and getting some offensive line help and, just looking at what he should be able to do again as an improved passer in his second year, there's a lot to like about him. So, I don't think I'm saying anything different than you probably heard from a lot of other people, but, it's hard not to fall in love with what Jalen Hurts can be if everything clicks.
Tera, you were going to ask about a position as well here on the breakout players.
Yeah. So what about so who do you have in terms of your breakout running back?
Again, I don't think I'm shocking the world looking at a lot of these second-year guys. Cam Akers, I think, showed us a little something with the final stretch of games. His final 6, obviously the 2 games that he performed in the playoffs. Would love to see him be more involved as a pass catcher. I think that's goes without saying. If he's going to have that breakout season, he's going to need to be a little bit better as a receiver out of the backfield. But I actually got a chance to speak to him a couple weeks ago. I'm doing a story for the second edition of our fantasy football magazine. Our first edition's on newsstands now, but the second edition did our cover story on second-year running back. So I spoke to Cam Akers, just about his role as a receiver, and I said to him, "Can you just forget that you're not talking to a media guy. I'm not reporting on anything, but I am, but I'm not reporting on anything. And what's your role in the passing game going to be?" And he's like, "I can't tell you that." So we heard Sean McVay say that he's going to be, maybe split out wide a little bit more. I think they want to get back to maybe what they had with Todd Gurley when things were great for Gurley 2017, 2018, before things started to really fall apart. So if Akers can, get close to a 40, 50 catch type of running back, then I do think a breakout season is in store if he stays healthy.
Cam Akers is one of my favorite. Sorry, Tera. Cam Akers is one of my favorite backs. I had him as my number 1 running back coming out in that draft that year, ahead of Jonathan Taylor, ahead of Swift, ahead of Edwards-Helaire. I just love everything about him except what the Florida State offensive line is. Now we're starting to see he got in a role late last season. Let's see what he can do in 2021. I love that pick.
Yeah.
I was going to say so you feel pretty confident that Akers is going to take the lead and have that Gurley kind of volume, and that they're not going to mix in Darrell Henderson much.
Oh, don't mix in Henderson. I think he deserves work. I mean, it's one of those situations where until Akers, shows that he could be that guy week in, week out, because as we saw last year, he had a hard time staying healthy early in the season, was a little banged up, and Henderson with Malcolm Brown, those guys were trying to cobble together the run game. It's one of those situations where you can still have a breakout season and still look at other guys in the same backfield and say that these guys are more sleepers, and I think Henderson qualifies as a sleeper for the lottery ticket appeal. If something were to happen to Akers, then he steps into that lead role. But he's also going to play, enough that if you're stuck, especially if we talk about some deeper leagues, 14-team, 16-team league, what people play in, that he can end up being a flex play. This offense, I think, can support 2 running backs. Again, Akers should be, 60+% of the touches, if not more. But I think Henderson's going to play enough that, if you're stuck and if there is an Akers injury, then you'll be thrilled to have a guy like Henderson on your team.
And who's your breakouts for your receiver and tight end?
I'm a big Terry McLaurin guy, mostly because of the new quarterback. And Ryan Fitzpatrick has shown time and time again that he will feature his number 1 guy. And I know this offense is sort of a little hard to gauge from what is Curtis Samuel going to do? How is Logan Thomas and J.D. McKissic going to build off what they did last year? Diami Brown is a guy getting a lot of buzz, but McLaurin's the lead guy. And if you look at Fitzpatrick's track record, whether it was Stevie Johnson in Buffalo, the couple of one-stop situations like we had with Kendall Wright in Tennessee, with Andre Johnson in Houston, Brandon Marshall for a couple seasons with the Jets, Devontae Parker with Miami. When he gets a guy, he leans on that guy. And Terry McLaurin certainly profiles as that guy. And so I think we've seen now 2 seasons of very good production, but this is the third year, which, I'm an old school guy, so I still sort of subscribe to the third-year wide receiver theory. But I also think that he's going to do enough with Fitzpatrick, putting him in those type of situations, the 50-50 balls, go make a play, go get the tough catch, and he could do all those things. And so I think he's got top 5 upside. And so love the upside of what McLaurin can bring in this offense, and Fitzpatrick, getting the best out of him.
And speaking of that top 5 upside, I think we're all pretty comfortable, especially in Dynasty, with Kelsey, Waller, Kittle. Everyone's throwing in Kyle Pitts there as that 4th tight end. I see on your breakouts, you've got Dallas Goedert and TJ Hawkinson kind of in that realm as breakout players. Their ADP's got them kind of tight end 5, tight end 6. They're both very similar where they're at. Who do you think is the better value, and who do you think has the best chance to be that 5th tight end this year?
Goddard's probably the better value just because he's going later. So anytime you have that opportunity to get a guy a round or 2 later, you're going to, you should buy into that. But Hawkinson, I think, has the higher ceiling because of what his profile was, coming out of Iowa and what he was able to do, what the hope of what he can be. I think, he's sort of the tight end that you look at when you're looking at a top 5 type of player, in that he's going to potentially lead his team in targets. Now, Dallas Goedert can as well, but he's got some tougher competition. When you look at the Lions receiving core, I mean, I think people would probably line us up and line up the guys there and say, okay, which is which, the Lions receivers or you guys? But Rashad Perryman, Tyrell Williams, I do like Amon-Ra St. Brown, but he's got to prove himself. Hawkinson should be the guy for Jared Goff. And, the one thing about Goff, he's, got his flaws, obviously, but we saw at the end of the 2019 season when the tight end was featured in Tyler Higbee, he produced at a really high level. And Hawkins showed some things last year where I think you can say, okay, this is the type of guy that can be that lead option in the passing game. They're probably going to be chasing points quite a bit. And so Hawkinson, I think, is going to finally fulfill on what the draft capital was when the Lions took him a couple of years ago.
All right, so speaking of drafts, one of the things I'm absolutely in love with right now is the CBS mock draft, the live ones. I've had an opportunity to get into a couple of the other drafts early on in the season there with you and Dave and Heath and RJ and everyone else that's kind of thrown in there with the CBS crew. And then I love the little sprinkle of the rest of the community kind of thrown in there too. It kind of adds a whole new element to this, especially this live mock draft. What are some of your early thoughts on these live mocks? Because I know my personal favorite is after the mock is done, usually yourself there, Heath, Dave, Adam sprinkled in there too, kind of goes over that recent mock and how it all broke down. So what are some of your early thoughts so far?
Well, I know what Dave and Heath and Adam are going to do almost every time. It's become sort of a running joke that I can sort of call out Heath's picks because he's kind of fallen in love with certain guys. So I know he's going to take Josh Jacobs. I know he's going to take Mark Andrews. I know he's going to take Robbie Anderson. It's like you can just sort of, okay, here it comes. and Dave and Adam as well. It's nice to have other voices in there, and so that's been the fun aspect of it. We're doing another one of these, live mock drafts that we, have started doing on our YouTube site. So we're doing a Scott Fishbowl one tomorrow, which I'm excited about. And Scott's going to join us. Eric Young, who's very attached to the fantasy community, is a professional wrestler. So we have some different voices in there as well. Longtime fantasy analyst who we're lucky to have on our Sportsline site, Scott Angle. He's taking part in some of our mock drafts. So it's good to get other people's takes, other people's opinions. As you've brought up, the chat room is fun. So unfortunately people can't see that, but it's a good idea of, oh, you took that guy there, are you stupid? It's usually us making fun of each other. We're not going to do that to our guests, but when the guests chime in, it's always fun. But I think the thing that you learn is, it's you're staring at average draft position. At least you should get an idea of what ADP is if you buy into that. And so you don't necessarily have to stay to that. You don't have to stay to what other people's rankings are. Like I said, you guys work together. We have our crew. You start to know what other people are doing, so it breaks it up a little bit. But it's fun to see, how people build their rosters, and that's what you should be doing at this time of year with mock drafts. I did one with Fantasy Pros earlier today. I think they're airing it tomorrow, but a mock draft with Joe Pisapia and Kyle Yates, and it was fun to get their takes on how they build their rosters. So anytime you could do mock drafts, and you should be doing them on your own. But it's a good way to get that idea, that feel for how you want your real draft day to go.
Yeah, I've been in a couple of CBS ones with Heath. I have to say, it's really hard drafting against you guys, man. It's like I had to reach for every player that I wanted.
Yeah.
It was like it was crazy. It seemed like you guys were in my head. I was like, wait, what? I wanted that guy, So kudos to you guys, man. It's way harder than people think.
Yeah, I saw the tweet go out about the Scott Fishbowl mock draft you guys are doing. And I'm not going to ask your strategy, but I will ask, what's one tip that you would give to someone heading into that draft?
Load up on tight ends. With the tight end premium being what it is, it's never a bad idea to take Kelsey early. Like, I have the 5th pick. If he's there at 5, I'm going to take him. It's hard to pass up on those running backs, but I think you look at what I had Kelsey last year. Unfortunately, the rest of my team wasn't great, but I made it to the playoffs, and that's obviously the hope is that you can get there and then see what happens. But anytime you can take some of these tight ends later, and the hope that you find the next Waller, Hawkinson, somebody, I think that I would like to get some stock in as well in the fishbowl. The new wrinkle with the kickers is going to be interesting. So we'll see how people buy into that, and then the 3rd round reversal. So I like that Scott's changing it up after 10 years, but it's such a unique and fun draft that you have to sort of buy into your guys. Like you said, Major, you want to, if you have a guy in mind, don't wait for it, because this is a great community, and I think a lot of people have the same sort of idea of, okay, these are the players that you're going to target. It may not be everyone, but if you have your guy, go get your guy, and it's never a bad idea to reach for him around it too early if you have somebody in mind.
What division are you in? Do you know off the top of your head?
I could tell you right now. I'll check. I think it is. I'm going to tell you the wrong thing. So I'll tell you before the night is over.
I'm looking it up as well.
Well, while you guys are doing that, I want to kind of touch on here. Like, the Scott Fishbowl is a fantastic thing because the networking is second to none. It's the best opportunity to get a chance to network with fans and for analysts and everything, kind of a mix. And you get into these drafts. So this is where it gets fun. You can do 100 mocks. And I guarantee you not one of those mocks will be what you see come draft day, because when you sprinkle that fan element into it, and like if you have all experts, it's all analysts from 12 websites, everyone knows everyone's rankings. It's not going to deviate off that very often. But you throw a couple fans in there, and all of a sudden you're taking someone is going mid-1st round that you thought was a 3rd round guy. It throws a whole new dynamic into it. And you got to be ready. You got to be able to, like Tyson says, everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. Well, that's what the Scott Fishbowl is. You're going to get punched in the mouth early in the draft. Which brings me to this. I know you guys threw out there for the CBS mock. I think you guys, I don't know if you filled those 2 spots as of yet, but you kind of threw out there. Hopefully no one's watching this. Maybe you can give me this. So who's your pick, John McClain or Mrs. Doubtfire? Because I have a very strong opinion on this one.
I saw your response. So this started. So Adam Azer, our podcast host, he on our Monday show, asked myself and Dave Richard, and he gave his three of your favorite movie dads, or three prominent movie dads. And I didn't take him seriously. So the three dads I gave were John McClane, because I feel like, I don't think we were the first, but I think we were well ahead of the curve on the Die Hard's a Christmas movie, because our podcast is old and we've been doing it for a long time. So it's a running joke for a lot of shows, but for us as well. So I said John McClane, which I knew would piss him off. I said Blue from Rio. My cousin is Jamey Eisenberg, so that's the only movie where he's played a father, at least to my recollection. So as a cartoon. And then just to be silly, I said Dominic Toretto from The Fast and Furious, because it's now become a storyline that he's a dad. So I knew that would kind of annoy Adam, because he wanted me to take it seriously and I didn't, which is one of our gags. And so he started our show and saying, I hate Jamey's list. And so then one of his suggestions was Mrs. Doubtfire. And so obviously Mrs. Doubtfire is a much better father than John McClane. But in the sense of what a father figure, should be doing, taking care of your children as opposed to maybe putting them in harm's way. But I think, Matt, as you pointed out, there were a lot of, I'd rather have the John McClane father figure in some cases than the Mrs. Doubtfire father figure. But it's a lot of fun responses. I think, if you get a chance to go read the responses from the people who replied, it's pretty hysterical, from John McClane is my choice because he taught me how to relax, but the feet, when he takes off his shoes and makes the fist with his feet. Somebody replied, Joey Wright, who's a fantasy analyst, he replied, Mrs. Doubtfire, because anybody that could throw a lime like that, it's a very small part in the movie, but she throws the lime at Pierce Brosnan's head, can play catch with their kids, so people were creative with it. It was fun, for something that was just kind of goofy and offbeat.
So, here's my problem with Mrs. Doubtfire. John McClane is a cop. He's trying to save the world.
Yep.
Mrs. Doubtfire essentially stole her own children. Identity theft for one. This is borderline restriction order.
Restraining order?
Restraining order.
Yeah.
He was this close to getting a restraining order put on there because he basically broke into his wife's house, kidnapped her children, had an identity. How can you consider this a great father? I've got issues with this. This guy's breaking the law at every point here.
Anything for our kids,
I'll say, if you want to come on our show and scream at Adam, you're more than welcome to about that. So you're welcome.
So then you kind of already mentioned Jesse there a little bit, but hypothetically, if there was an all DC Comics fantasy league,
mm-hmm.
who would win this league? And is there going to be any insider trading, like a little help along the way here from Jamey? Are you going to get in this to help out anyone?
So Jesse being Jesse or Jesse being Lex Luthor?
As Lex Luthor here.
Oh, well, then obviously I don't know Lex Luthor. I know Jesse. So I guess I probably couldn't help him specifically. It's hard to go against Superman. He could, X-ray vision and look at your draft board if you wanted to, I guess. I'm not going to say I know every DC character. I know the main ones. Wonder Woman could obviously make herself invisible if she wanted to go look at your draft board too. So, she would be tough to beat. Lex Luthor would cheat in some way, shape, or form. Probably rig the draft room or rig the draft board to be in his favor. But it'd be tough. The Flash could, I think I remember from the cartoon, he could run in reverse time. So if he didn't like his pick, he could, go back in time and
sounds like a lot of cheating going on between the heroes.
Well, look, superheroes are superheroes, but they want to win in fantasy too. So, I'm sure they would, try and do what they can. And obviously, Batman knows, the technical side probably better than anybody. So you never know what would happen there.
That's true.
So that kind of touches on our whole football aspect of the show. We're moving into the rest of the show here. We're going down the rabbit hole or the viper pit, so to speak.
Okay.
If you were a baseball closer or a WWE superstar, you mentioned a certain wrestler you're going to have on your guys' mock draft tomorrow. What would your intro be? What would your music be when you're coming down to the ring?
So I have 3 kids. My 3 sons are 9, 6, and the 3-year-old. And the 9-year-old and the 6-year-old, they have walk-up music for their baseball teams.
Nice.
And I also, because of my job, I guess the parents said, "Oh, can you do the, now batting?" So I do all the intro music. So both of my kids, I don't know if you're familiar with Zadie Wolf. It's from Do Perfect. I have no idea what the show is, but I know my older one, my 9-year-old likes it, and my 6-year-old wants to do everything my 9-year-old does. So they have 2 songs from Zadie Wolf, and they're very catchy. So my older one is Gladiator from Zadie Wolf. And then the middle one is Rule the World. So those songs are in my head all the time. And plus the rest of the team, because like I said, I had to do the intros and you hear it time and time again. They played a lot of games. So I'll stick with my kids right now and go with the Zadie Wolf songs.
I feel you on the Gladiator. So I coach kids hockey, and they're in that 11, 12-year-old range.
Okay.
Which is also the YouTube age, which is the Dude Perfect age. So the Gladiator song was one of those songs that was kind of getting played in the dressing room before the game, after the game. So I know exactly what you're talking about as soon as you said Gladiator. I didn't know who Zadie Wolf was.
It's catchy.
It's got a little bit something to it. Yeah, I can get down with it.
I feel so old right now. I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
I'm going to guess you're younger than me, so I feel older as well. Old as well.
Well, Major, I just basically touch like every child age from 24 all the way down to 3. So I've got quite the broad stroke here when it comes to trying to understand children, which I'm horrible at altogether.
My 3-year-old, which is kind of fun, he loves "We Will Rock You." So to hear him, singing Queen all the time is kind of cool. He's like, he just loves "Mud on Your Face, Big Disgrace." So he says that all the time.
Hey, that's my favorite line too.
There you
go. Speaking of kids, man, like playing sports is such a big part of growing up. Did you play any sports growing up, and who were like your favorite players growing up?
So I played baseball up until JV in high school, and then I stopped after my sophomore season. So baseball has always been a big part of my life. I played soccer as a kid, basketball as a kid, played adult softball, until that got too old, until I got too old for that, and basketball as well. So now living vicariously through my kids. But favorite athletes growing up, as a matter of fact, we went to a pizza place for Father's Day, and there was a picture of Dan Marino. So I'm a South Florida guy, so grew up a Dolphins fan. Unfortunately, I covered the team, so you lose your affiliation. At least old school newspaper guy. They used to tell us you can't root for the teams that you cover, and so I had to lose my affiliation for the Dolphins. It kind of coincided when they got bad, so it was easy to say goodbye. But I was a big Marino fan growing up. Actually, my favorite player was Mark Duper. For you old school. Football fans, I was always a fast kid, but I couldn't throw the ball. So as much as I love Marino, I was better catching the ball than I was throwing it. And so my best friend growing up, he always got to be Marino. I got to be Duper, but I was certainly fine with that because I got to catch all the touchdowns.
I went to middle school with his nephew. That's funny.
Did you really?
Yeah, out in Chatsworth, California.
Wow. Small world. So
I got to know, why Duper over Clayton?
I was just, like I said, a speed guy. And so, Clayton was the star. I just liked, because I could run, past all my friends, and my buddy had a good arm, so it was just a little bit better to catch those touchdowns and just want to be a little different. Everybody liked Clayton a little more than Duper, but Duper was always just kind of the guy that I fell in love with. Used to wear 85, with our games, draw the names on your shirt, draw the numbers on your shirt, excuse me. And so, just kind of had a affiliation for Duper more so than Clayton.
So keeping on this personal line, tell us one decision that changed the trajectory of your life. And it has to be something that's not marriage or birth of children.
Sure. So I was a newspaper guy, like I said. I went from the University of Florida to a small paper in Boca Raton, the Boca Raton News, which was a daily newspaper in South Florida that's no longer in existence. And then from there, I went to the Palm Beach Post, and I was kind of the de facto number 2 guy for all the pro sports, which was great experience. I was the backup Dolphins writer, backup Panthers writer, Marlins writer, Heat writer, so I got to do a lot of, really cool events. But I always felt like I could, do more. I wanted to do more. And I just got frustrated kind of with the newspaper business. And I'd like to say that I got lucky with the job that I have, but this was a decision that probably would have completely altered my life in a much, much different way. I had 2 job offers available to me. One was to be the fantasy writer at CBS, and I was, blessed to replace the great Michael Fabiano when he left CBS Sportsline at the time, CBS Sports when it was just starting. He went to the NFL Network. So the job became available. And the other job offer that I had was to be a public relations writer for the Jewish Community Center in Miami. And I was like, I'm so done with sports media. I was really frustrated. And I was living with a buddy at the time, and my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. They both said, "Are you stupid? This is still your dream job. You're going to get an opportunity to work for CBS, and even though it's fantasy, you're not going to cover games, but you never know where it's going to lead." And I was like, okay, I guess I could still stick it out for another couple of years and see how it goes. I was turning 30 at the time, just before I turned 30, and honestly, I was torn on the two jobs because I was just so fed up with sports media and what it was. And I'm like, work for the internet? Are you crazy? I'm a newspaper guy. How can I go work for the internet? And best decision I ever made. Like I said, got in at the right time. This was 2006, just as fantasy was exploding, and couldn't have asked for a better situation. So I wish the person well who took the job at the JCC, and I hope they have had much success and have brought a lot to that organization. But I probably would have been miserable if I took the job and turned down this great opportunity.
It's funny because I'm old enough to remember when television killed the radio star, and now it's almost like the internet killed the newspaper star. Yep. Really, the newspaper's still there, but it's not in the same fashion as what it was. So I'd have to say that's a pretty good decision on what you went to. Now, a lot of people react very well to good decisions. Some people not so good to bad decisions. How would Chewbacca react to a bad play in fantasy football?
He would probably growl. I guess you've probably heard me do Chewbacca before, so he'd probably go. I love Chewbacca. Chewbacca's the
best. Awesome. So yeah, kind of going back to your role within TV and radio shows. So can you tell us a little bit about the differences between TV and radio shows pre-COVID and post-COVID?
Oh, wow. Radio really hasn't changed much, just because a lot of the things you do remotely. So I still had almost all of my same radio appearances throughout the fall, for the stations and the for the radio spots that were still having me on. So I was appreciative of that. So nothing really changed in that regard. TV was interesting, so we have our webcast on CBS Sports HQ. And it was kind of twofold because our show continued throughout, we actually did more shows last offseason, NFL offseason, because of all of the other sports shutting down. And it was around the time, as you guys are aware, with the NFL draft ramping up. And so it was easy to sort of, continue to do our fantasy stuff. And the spot that I'm sitting in, which is in a room in my house, the bookcase and the cameras in front of me, it's a very small space. It's about this big. This is where I've been, sitting for a long time. And then we got back into our studios in Fort Lauderdale, which are beautiful, and so appreciative of the opportunity that they give us at CBS as they continue to grow it out, because it used to be just a closet that was a green room. If you're familiar with TV stuff, a green room, you can do almost anything behind you. And went from a green room to a studio to now we have 3 studios in our building. We opened our studio back up, but we had planned to build out. We opened our 1 studio back up. We had planned to build out 3 studios, and the construction got pushed back. So we went into the building to do some stuff pre-season and the early part of the season, and then they sent us all back home because they saw our home setups were certainly capable of it. So for about 4 or 5 weeks in the middle of the season last year, we were back in our home spots. The biggest difference is the interaction with people. I'm blessed to host our Fantasy Football Today show of our video show. So Adam hosts our podcast, which are also simulcast on YouTube. So I don't want to confuse people. So Adam is still the podcast host, always will be. But I host our studio show, and that also airs on Sundays, our pregame show leading up to kickoff. And so the interaction you have when you look somebody in the face, whether you can, tell them, hey, you're a little long-winded, stop, the hand gestures, or, you get engaged in a conversation with somebody. It's just totally different, when you're not doing it in the same space as them. So I don't know if you guys have ever had the opportunity to be all together in the same room, to do, those type of things, the camaraderie, the laughter, the fighting, Dave Richard and I have been doing this since 2006. We fight like brothers, and it's fun. Sometimes it's annoying. I love him to death. I hope he would say the same about me. Some people think we hate each other when they're watching some of our clips. because we're fighting like that. But, if you have a sibling or a significant other or whatever the case may be, sometimes you get in that. But the biggest difference is not being in the same room with somebody else. And, I'm so thankful that we're going to get back to that. And I can't wait to get back in the studio and, actually get a chance to, see my colleagues face to face.
And I know you love Dave because I've watched you guys feed each other before.
We have. We lost the bet to Adam. That's right.
Yeah, we all have the hometown leagues that we love. What's your favorite league you ever been a part of?
It's changing. I have a lot that I love. I actually usually play in about 20 to 25 leagues on a yearly basis. So I do a lot of them. I have a hard time saying no, when people ask me, but I have my oldest running league is, friends from college that we've kept it at a 10-team league, non-PPR. We've haven't changed much. It's one keeper, but it's a great way to stay in touch with friends. I have a league that I play in with buddies that I used to play softball with that we still keep in touch. And, it's lucky enough to still do a live draft with that. Last year was the first time we didn't do it. We did it over Zoom, but it wasn't the same. But we usually we rent out a room somewhere, bar, restaurant, whatever, and just catch up, and that's always great just from the live aspect of it. But I've started 2 father-son leagues, and to see my 6-year-old is obviously still a little too young for it. I waited till they both were 5 when we started it, but the 9-year-old, it's awesome to see him, his friends, and how they've now grown into it. We started it with the rules where you had to draft the first year you had to draft the first round by yourself. And then every year it adds to it. By year 3, there was 4 or 5 kids who were doing the draft themselves and running the league themselves. And just to see how that next generation is getting into it, the goal was eventually that we turn it over to them and they run the league, and then we can go just hang out as buddies, and just watch our kids, do the draft and run the league. But I have one friend's son. I was just out with his parents the other night, and I was looking through because I don't know how you guys, do your research and whatnot, but I usually have one of our CBS leagues open to, do some research on players or player pages or whatever. And I happened to pick the father-son league, and I was just looking at it, and I was like, why do I have a trade request, a trade offer? And one of the kids, he sent a trade offer, a few weeks ago because the league is still up and you can do that. And so I think he offered me offered my son, Derrick Henry, me and my son, Derrick Henry, for, I forget who it was, but it was like a 1 for 2. And I was like, why would we ever do this? But I appreciate the fact that he's engaged in it already, and just shows that, these young kids are getting involved in it. And, for what we do as an industry and those type of things, it's fun to see, little kids that are getting involved in it as well.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
And bad trades don't have an age limit, right? We get them from the youngest to the oldest. So
it's spawned a father-son basketball league. It's nice. We did a father-son baseball league, and the one kid who's sending the trade offers. So some of the dads are still, probably a little bit too much hands-on with it, but with basketball and baseball, I really didn't care. Football is the one that I really want them to focus on. So my brother-in-law was running the basketball team for his son, mostly because he's like, listen, my nephew is not going to really be involved with it. But I was like, I want him to be involved, so I made sure they did it. But this one kid who sent the trade offer, the Derrick Henry offer, he was sending trade offers all the time. And so my brother-in-law says to me, and he knows the father and the son, he's like, is it the dad or is it the kid? Because if it's the dad, I'm going to yell at him. If it's the kid, I'll let it go. But the young guy was sending trades all the time in the basketball league, and it just became a running joke.
Awesome. So you told us about that transition that you had, the decision that you had between going into fantasy sports versus going another route. And, take us back to when you first transitioned over to fantasy sports. What was it like going from fantasy sports as something that's, just something that's kind of cool, good hobby, to something that's officially what you do?
Oh, it was crazy, just because I started, my start date was September 6th. It was the week of the season. So I was, like I said, I was a newspaper guy. I was working for the Palm Beach Post up until it was. So the last thing that I did for the newspaper was I covered a Marlins-Orioles series in Camden Yards, which was one of the best experiences of my life, just being in Camden. And then did some of the Heat playoffs. That was the year that they beat the Mavericks in 2006. And so went from that to kind of taking some time off and the job search. And usually at that point I'd be getting ready to cover the Dolphins. And so I was, in that mindset. And so when I accepted the job at CBS, they had me come in and do a mock draft. And I've never been so nervous for anything in my life because I'd played fantasy. And I was, part of the reason why I took the job was because I was, I'm sure, you guys have probably had experiences where there's somebody in your league, not that you're necessarily taking advice from, but you're bouncing ideas off of. Hey, what do you think about this trade I may be talking, or another league? So in one of my leagues, the one I mentioned, the 10-team league, had a few friends that would be like, hey, I'm in another league. What do you think about this? Because I was good at it. And, so I was like, okay, I guess I've given advice, fantasy advice before. I know the NFL. And so the beginning of the first season, I was like, the one thing that I want to still do is be a reporter, be a journalist. And I remember, so if you recall Keith Byers, a longtime Eagles running back, more of a fullback, but he was running back. So he just started coaching a high school team in South Florida. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go talk to Keith Byers about my first start sit column, which was going to be Edgerrin James when he was, I think, with the Cardinals at the time. I'm going to go talk to Keith Byers about Edgerrin James. And I'm going to, what is as a running back, what does he do? And I was like, oh, this is cool. I got a lot of good feedback from it because that was something that really hadn't been done before was, talking to players and, getting some different perspective on things. And that's something that I tried to carry through still to this day. Like I mentioned, I spoke to Cam Akers last week. I still try to talk to players. I'm in a really lucky situation. And I recognize that with CBS that I get to go to the Super Bowl. I get to go to the owners meetings. I get to go to the combine, and I get to talk to these players. Like you mentioned, Matt, Cam Akers was your favorite guy coming out. We did several segments in Indianapolis. This was right before COVID and everything got shut down. We had a set right there where the players were. If you know where the podiums are, if you watch the combine and the interview process, they were right behind us. They would come off the podium and come talk to us. And we had all the running backs, and they let me host that segment. And so DeAndre Swift, Cam Akers, Jonathan Taylor, I'm shaking their hand one by one. And Cam Akers, one of my favorite guys. He wasn't my favorite. I don't want to steal your thunder there. He was, great call by you that he was your favorite. But I love Cam Akers. And as a Florida guy, to say I like the Florida State guy was, kind of like icky for me. But,
Right.
I still try to do that. And I go back to that Keith Byers interview, the first thing that I did. And it's something that, I think if you have something that's helped your background or helped you get to this point, one of my journalism professors always said, write what you know. So for me, I know to talk to guys, and you get swayed different ways, like I have probably a different feeling for Cam Akers now than I did before because I spoke to him, and I have a personal, not relationship with him, but I have a personal connection with him now that I'm going to root for him. And I spoke to James Robinson for the same story. I'm going to root for him, just because he was nice to me and, took the time out to speak to me. I'm not going to change my opinion of how I evaluate him, but if it's if I'm on the fence one way or the other, I'll probably lean positively internally just because I had a good interaction with him.
I was going to ask about that interaction kind of thing because I do know you talked to a few players and stuff. And when you're an analyst, when you're making, sorry, let me phrase that. Being an analyst, you kind of give a concrete kind of observation of what's going on. It has to be pretty cut and dry based on analytics and this and that. When you're in a draft, though, do you lean towards my guys? Like if you've got, say, a Cam Akers there that you really like and you know him pretty good and you've had conversations and his ADP is right there with, I'm just going to spitball, another running back that maybe he's just as good, but you don't really feel the same way about him. Are you going to lean towards Cam Akers a little bit more? Are you going to draft my guys over maybe someone who's ranked a little higher based on those interactions on your personal teams, not your advice?
No, and I'll give you an example. So I've gotten the chance to, and again, I don't consider him, this isn't a friend. This isn't, this is a professional relationship. But Mark Ingram is somebody that I've talked to many, many times and gotten the chance to be around him. And, I wish him a ton of success in Houston. But it like last year, he was coming off that great season in 2019. He's always been nice to me. It was painful to have to say bust for Mark Ingram, after they drafted J.K. Dobbins. So I'll never let my personal interactions necessarily come in the way. And like I referenced, James Robinson, one of the Jaguars PR guys, asked me in setting up this interview, James wants to know, because I had mentioned, it's about second-year running backs. That's for our magazine. It's the stories topic. And he said, is this a ranking? And I said, no. It's not a ranking. I'm just want to get his take on the group and how his rookie season went. But for a second, it was, do I tell him that I don't like James Robinson? Like I don't want to put that to the PR guy who's then going to go to James and say, yeah, this guy doesn't have a strong feeling for you. But like, so the way I phrased it, because again, he took the time out to speak to me. It was nice to me. And I'll tell you another story about a player being more than kind, but I look at his ADP, like we use the NFC average draft position, as kind of a guide for our shows. And he's going in the 5th round. And I can't understand why James Robinson, after they drafted Travis Etienne, is going in the 5th round. Now, if he's going in the 7th round, I think that's great value for what he could be. But he's going too close to Etienne to, at least for my opinion, to be ranked that high. I still think he could still be a good running back. So it's like he's in the 5th round, he's a bust. In the 7th round, he's kind of in that sleeper range, anything lower than that. And so I'd like to see James Robinson slip a little bit in drafts so that I can feel a little better about, where he comes in. But one player who I was so impressed with, and like I said, I used to cover the Dolphins. I've been around players for a long time, and this is going back to Dan Marino's last season, just to, sort of date myself a little bit. So I had a phone interview set up with Arian Foster in the peak of his fantasy dominance, his, dominance for the Texans. Anybody who's played fantasy long enough knows Arian Foster, if he had a longer career, would be considered one of the best fantasy running backs of all time. So this is actually the 10-year anniversary of my uncle passing away, and it was right around this time. He passed away in August. I had a phone interview set up with Arian Foster in training camp, and the Texans had said, okay, we can do it this day. And I said, unfortunately, my uncle just passed away. Can we postpone it? And they said, absolutely, we understand. Take your time, whatever you need. We'll set it up for you still. So I speak to Arian Foster. First thing out of his mouth is, hey, I just wanted to wish you condolences on your uncle passing away. And I know the PR staff told him to say that. They didn't, at least I think so. If he did that on his own, that even adds to the appeal of what he means to me, just from a personal standpoint. But to have a player who I don't know, never seen my face, doesn't know anything about me, to take the go out of his way to say that, I thought was just so kind and sincere. I never said a bad word about him the entire season. I don't care if he was miserable. Thankfully, He was great. He didn't have to worry about that. But another player, like when he went to the Dolphins and it was clear he was not going to still be the same guy, it was hard to say Arian Foster is going to be a bust, because I have still that feeling of just how nice he was in that one particular moment that he did that, and it meant so much to me at the time because I was going through, just a rough spot.
So kind of going back to that journey, what is along the way? What's one of the things that you've learned about yourself?
Want to learn? I guess speak slower. I speak too fast sometimes. I think I try to tell myself this all the time, because I get accused of sometimes looking like I'm not the happiest person on some of our shows, because I do a lot of shows. Like this is the 5th podcast I'm doing today. So during the season, we do a lot of stuff, and you're human. If you have kids, if you have spouse, significant other, parents, siblings, everybody goes through their own stuff. So you have moments where you don't perform at your best. And I've been trying to tell myself time and time again, you have the best job in the world. Show it. Act that way. Be that, be that person. Be energetic. Be open. Be smile more. And I think that's something that could probably carry through to every aspect of everybody's life, if you're happy and passionate about something that you do. And so I think, we all kind of need that reminder from time to time. And, I certainly do myself. And so it's a great question, because it's something that, tries to something I try to have as a daily reminder.
Can you talk to us about one of the funniest podcasts you ever done?
Oh, wow. They all usually involve Adam Azer. So Adam used to live in South Florida. We used to all be together, which was great. The funniest one we ever did. So I don't know if you guys know Nando DeFino. He works at The Athletic. He is an unbelievable human being, a funny guy, knows TV, knows radio, knows podcasts. Just one of the best people, but also best people in this industry. And he's done a lot of great things for a lot of people. So Nando, myself, and Adam, Dave Richard, we all had a great rapport. And Nando and Adam were great foils for each other. And so Nando's last show, Nando realized bad mistake by Adam when he told him that he can edit our podcast with, he could edit out anything that we said. He'd bleep out anything. So Nando's last podcast, he just went on F-bomb tirade of just completely just going off with every bad word you could think of. And Adam was so mad because he knew he was good. And it took him at the time, I don't know what software he was using, but it took him so much time to edit this. And he just went off just completely for like 5 minutes of just, F, S, B, this, whatever. And I was crying, and I think anybody that's heard that, you hear me laughing, sometimes like when I get my laugh going, it could become contagious, and he had me going. I miss Nando, working with Nando every day. We used to steal Adam's wallet all the time. That was a fun gag. He has this, George Costanza wallet. So he would always take his wallet out and leave it on the desk and then walk out. We would steal it and hide it and make him play a game in the studio of where's your wallet. So that was always fun. And then one of our more recent ones, I guess not recent, but within the last couple of years, Adam and Heath shared a team in one of our podcast leagues. We like to include some of our podcast listeners and do some leagues with them. And so they shared a team on one of the leagues, and Adam made Heath, I think if I remember correctly, Adam made Heath draft 2 quarterbacks. Carson Wentz was one at the time, and Heath didn't want to carry 2 quarterbacks. He wanted to draft some other players. And so Adam was remote, and I was I think Heath was a commissioner. I told Heath, I said, hey, just drop Carson Wentz on the show and see what Adam does. And so they were arguing about, why they drafted him. And then Heath was like, you know what, I'm just going to drop him. And he dropped him. And Adam went completely nuts. He called him an idiot moron. It's become one of our favorite drops, just because he was so mad. And he was like, listen, it was a joke. But Adam just, like I said, most of our fun podcasts involve Adam.
You mentioned Adam. We've mentioned Nando, and obviously Heath and Dave and everyone else there. Who's one of those guys at CBS right now, whether it's the draft or whatever, that's got some of the best writing that you've ever read, that may be underrated, who may be destined for the Hall of Fame even, as far as that goes?
Pete Prisco is
drink.
There you go. Well done. well done. Pete Prisco is an unbelievable person. If you follow the NFL and don't follow Pete, I don't know what you're doing. He's one of those guys. There are newsbreakers, and there are analysts that break down the game, and then there are people that just have been around for a long time that get information. And Pete's an information guy, and he doesn't always report a lot of the things directly, but if you listen to the shows that he's on, you kind of know who he's speaking to and stuff that he gets. And he's one of the best resources that I've ever, been blessed to, be around and work with. And I can't say enough good things about him. Our guys, our NFL guys, they're not as well known as Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport or some of those guys, but Pete Prisco, Will Brinson, Ryan Wilson, John Breach, Jonathan Jones now, Jason LaCanfora. It's a very solid group. And, I don't think they get the credit they deserve, especially guys like Pete and Ryan and Will and John. Those guys, the Pick Six podcast that Will hosts is unbelievable. But, we're lucky enough that Pete, for an old curmudgeon, he likes to come on our fantasy shows. I just convinced him to join our Dynasty League. We lost somebody, and he usually plays in only one fantasy league because we force him to. But I told him, I said, you don't have to worry about a lot of the waiver wire stuff because there's not going to be a lot of guys. He inherited an unbelievable roster. I was really surprised that the guy walked away from this team. So Pete, doesn't necessarily play in IDP. We have IDP guys in this Dynasty League, so he gets a chance to play in that aspect. But follow him on Twitter. I think it's at Prisco CBS, and he's one of those get off my lawn guys. So you might have some fun with that. But his NFL takes are amazing, and he's just a fantastic individual.
So I'm not going to ask who Pete likes in fantasy football this year, but I am going to ask who Bobby Boucher likes in fantasy football this year.
Bobby Boucher likes Vicky Valancourt because she's the best. Even though Mama said that I should stay away from Vicky Valancourt, but she is like the perfect H2O because she's just so sweet and so good that if you don't like foosball, then Mama said you the devil.
Yes. When did you
Really
know
good.
that you can do that?
I guess after watching the movie, Adam Sandler, Frank Caliendo, if you know the comedian Frank Caliendo, he does a fantastic Adam Sandler. And one of his bits is like, I think he says that Adam Sandler can write a song about anything and it makes $1 million. So like the one joke that he says is like, I think it's a cookie for me, a cookie for you. Let's have a cookie in a big brown shoe. And then he goes, and then Frank will say, I just made $1 million. And so I heard Frank do that. I've got a chance to see Frank live a few times. He's done some stuff for my wife's company. And so I just, started, messing around with the Boucher stuff. The stutter is I don't know where the stutter comes from because I don't stutter. And so I just start doing Bobby Boucher and the stutter comes and it's very weird, but
so natural.
It is. And there's just so many funny lines from that movie.
Yeah, that's a great movie, man. You just threw me off with that. My next question is all like
I told you football is foosball and the devil.
Stop. All right, let's see. So if you were not doing fantasy football, what would you be doing?
Oh gosh,
maybe impersonations.
Impersonations, yes. No, I don't think that I would be doing impersonations. I made the joke yesterday. So my wife is a saint, and on Father's Day, she had us. We made sandwiches for a homeless shelter in South Florida, and so we had to make 55 turkey sandwiches for this church in South Florida, and so I told her that I should be a sandwich maker because I made the sandwiches myself. So that's on the forefront of my mind. I like to think I'd probably be writing in some capacity. That's always been a passion. So that's one thing that as our industry changes and we do more multimedia stuff, the webcasts and podcasts and those things that I don't write as much as I think I love doing. And so, like I said, we're in the process of finishing our second magazine. So it's been fun to get back to just writing. But I don't know, to be honest with you. I'm scared to find out, if CBS ever kicks me to the curb, what's gonna have to happen. Coaching, maybe. I like coaching my kids. I don't think there's much career in that for me, but I certainly enjoy the aspect of coaching. A few of my buddies have said that I should start my own travel team for baseball as a coach, but I don't think that would pay the bills.
So we don't usually get into very many questions, but when they do come in, we want to make sure we get it on here. So Jace Burke is kind of asking here, was just off. Sorry, Major. Sorry, Tera. Just covering me up here. Was offered Hunt, Pollard, a 2022nd, a 2023rd, a 2023rd, bunch of draft picks basically for Austin Eckler. Do you like the Austin? I like Austin Eckler still when it comes to this, but what are you leaning here? Half point PPR. He's already got Edwards-Helaire, A.J. Dillon, David Johnson, which I don't think is a very strong running back room. I don't know if that's – I see why he'd want Hunt and Pollard to kind of add to that, but I think you still need that stud there in Eckler. What do you think?
It's a lot to give up just, knowing that Hunt, if he does leave Cleveland, he's still young enough that he could still get a featured job somewhere, or if something happens to Nick Chubb. And obviously, if Tony Pollard becomes the lead guy in Dallas while Dak is still there and this offensive line is still intact, then he's going to be a monster. But if you feel like your team is ready to win now, you might have to give up that much capital. The draft picks, to me, there's no first round pick involved. So, what second and third round picks could potentially be. They could be, star if you're lucky enough to hit on one, but, you're not really, I think, worried about that too much. I would probably try and counter if I could remove maybe Pollard and just make it Hunt in the draft picks. That's something I would try and do, but, it may not necessarily swing the trade. But if you think your team is ready to win now, then getting a guy like Austin Eckler could be good.
And then a couple other quick ones here. Are you planning on winning football games this year?
Am I going to any? I hope I'll still go to the Super Bowl. I've been to the last 4, so that's been, like I said, a blessing. I think usually I go to one preseason game. I try to take my kids to a preseason game because it's the only time I get to spend with them at a football stadium. So I'll try and get to a Dolphins preseason game. I'm not sure if I'll get a chance to. With I haven't seen fully what the Dolphins primetime games are, if there's a Monday or Thursday involved there. So if there usually is, maybe I can get to one of those, but it's just so difficult during the season to go to any games.
So just kind of backtrack here. Major kind of mentioned what you'd be doing if you weren't doing fantasy football. Do you have any musical talents that you want to share with us? Or like, do you have a career in music maybe in order?
Yeah, there would not be a career in music. There's a reason why I didn't pursue a career in music. So I used to play the saxophone. I guess I still play the saxophone. I just haven't picked it up in a long time. And so that was something that I was good at in high school and college. And it's not something I regret, but I said I stopped playing baseball through my JV season was because I thought I was going to get a music scholarship. And so I, focused on that a little bit more. But I played in the jazz band at the University of Florida, and still would like to pick it up from time to time, especially as my kids are starting to learn guitar and piano a little bit as we're trying to introduce music to them. But it's not the most quiet instrument. When you have little kids around, you're trying to get them to sleep, and so I think maybe when they're a little bit older, hopefully I can still remember a few things and teach them how to play.
We might have to have a little talk with Scott Fisher why there was no Kenny G division in the SFB 11.
Probably for obvious reasons.
Exactly. What have you learned through fantasy sports?
Oh wow. What have I learned? I've learned a lot about this community. It's just amazing. You mentioned this, Matt, about the Scott Fish Bowl and the fan aspect of what the draft means. But, to see, how many people are passionate about a game, positively and negatively. I've had some rough experiences, being in the public eye for a long time, but mostly, positive ones. And I think as this community continues to grow and, I think getting a chance, to speak to you guys and, other people from other sites, it's just, you find out about, all different walks of life, and, everybody's had their own path to find and follow and continue to follow, and it's just, amazing. And for me, I when I took the job at CBS, it was more, okay, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to maybe, get back into traditional journalism, go be actually, interviewed for our NBA job at CBS became available when I interviewed for it. And, thankfully I didn't get it because I think I would have regretted, just doing that solely. But it's just awesome, and I think, people, as more things become available to us with research, I think sometimes we get away from what the core aspect of what fantasy sports is and what fantasy football is in particular, which is who do I start, who do I sit, who do I draft, who do I avoid. It's fun to, get all the information possible, but at the root of it, for what we do, that's all people really care about, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine. That people actually, want to talk to me, talk to us, talk to, people and ask advice. I think, we probably can all agree that, there are a lot of people that just play this game that may know more than us. I certainly feel that way. Our audience and the people who play on CBS. I'm just lucky to be the one sitting in the seat. And I think the communication and the interaction with those type of people and fantasy players has been the best part for me. I don't know if I answered your question. I sounded like I guess I was talking.
No, that's awesome.
I think everyone's getting distracted by my kid that's turning the light off and on.
Hey, but your face, Tera, your face when it happened was like priceless. That was like the mom face that everyone sees. Like,
that's right.
I'm gonna kill you.
You know what? All I could think about that, Tera, during that is the same look I give all the time. So if you ever see this happen where I go on to mute, also the head snaps, you know what's going on. Like this is a green screen here because behind me is like the door to Narnia. There's all kinds of kids going in and out of that door. It's amazing.
So how many kids do you have?
What day of the week?
Tuesday.
So currently, I've got 5 kids that are over the age of 20 with 3 grandkids between them. And then I have 3 foster kids plus 3 kids of my own between the ages of 3 and 12 in the house. And we do take on other foster kids too. So awesome. It's a lot of children a lot of the time here. So my wife's a saint here. So
how about you, Tera?
2 little boys, 4 and 1. So yeah,
nice.
It's the 4-year-old flipping the lights on.
Right. Major, how about you? You have kids yet?
I have a daughter. Yeah, she's 18. She's like starting. She's going off to be an adult now, man. She's doing her thing.
That's awesome. Kids are
So
great.
yeah, they are. So much fun. But we've talked a little bit about your colleagues, mentioned them here and there, but relationships are so crucial to this industry. You mentioned that in the community. So, can you tell us about, maybe one or two relationships that have been really important to you along the way?
Sure. I think first off, the guys that I work with, Dave's been so, great, from the beginning. He's just an unbelievable person to work with. Adding Adam, and Nando, over the course of the years has been, fantastic. I got the chance, to meet Scott Fish in person the first time in the Super Bowl in Minneapolis. I don't know if you've got a chance to talk to Scott. He tells this story a lot, so if you've heard it before. But so Scott was at the mall where Radio Row was taking place, and I think I saw him tweet something. I guess I had to because I never met him at the time. So he tweeted, at Radio Row, whatever, and I reached out to him and I said, "Hey Scott, I'm on the other side of it. I'm inside Radio Row. I'm over here. Come say hi. Let's meet." And he came over, and I was able to get him a day pass and to come and walk around in Radio Row. He got to meet some of the radio hosts that he's known and some fantasy people. Pat Mayo was there. There was a lot of Yahoo. I think some of the guys from Yahoo were there, and so Scott got to talk to several people, and he got to see some of the athletes and the celebrities who were walking around. And so Scott, who is obviously the nicest human being in the world and the most generous human being in the world, anytime we're in the same space together, he says that about me because of the thing that I did for him, which was, the Radio Row thing. And I'm like, Scott, just stop. There's no comparison. You are the nicest human being alive, but it was nice to meet him and, just to see what he's able to do and so many great things, as you touched on, Matt, it's great for the fantasy community. It's great for the world, just what he does. We got a chance to hang out last year at the, FSGA convention in Las Vegas, and he won the Humanitarian of the Year award, which should be named the Scott Fish Humanitarian Award. And just what that guy does, just because it's on, I think, a lot of our minds in the fantasy community, is just unbelievable. And he is a saint and just the nicest person. But his just being friends with him, I feel like I'm a better person by association. So he's great. But for the most part, it's been the people that I've gotten the chance to work with, personally. Those people have been just so nice. And then, as you reach out, the tentacles grow, and you just realize, like I said, how many awesome people there are in this fantasy community, from the smaller sites to the bigger sites, and Matthew Berry on down. And it's there is obviously some pettiness and some bitterness that goes on, but I think the best way to approach it is to realize that we're all trying to make a living, be fun, have fun, and enjoy it. And, if you have the right attitude with it, I think you can sort of push all that stuff to the side.
Yeah, great answer. Can you give us your best advice for those of us trying to make it in the fantasy football industry?
I think doing podcasts and writing, just trying to develop a following. Social media has obviously changed a lot of it. It's clearly very competitive, and it's a lot of people are starting up things and doing their own thing. So it's trying to be different. Get your however you present your information. You want to do it in a way that I think is going to attract some attention. I had a friend of mine, his or their 13-year-old son, asked me the other day. He said, we're starting a podcast, him and his friends, and he was asking for advice on how to do it. I was trying to tell him, like, the thing you want to do is obviously get some buzz. Getting guests are a huge thing, but getting the guests to say certain things, so like this kid in particular is an Eagles fan, and at the Super Bowl in Minnesota, when the Eagles were there. I think it was in Minnesota, right? When the Eagles were there, Eagles Patriots. And he got a chance to meet Ron Jaworski. And I said, reach out to, tweet at Ron Jaworski and see if Ron Jaworski will come on your show. And if he says, Carson Wentz was the worst quarterback ever, or Jalen Hurts is never going to be anything, that could get some buzz in Philadelphia. You want to try and create some buzz where people realize you're doing something great, and people should be attracted to the greatness that you're putting out there. And so, you could try to have different takes, and you could try to, have the same takes as other people and hope that you're just saying it differently. But I think anytime you can sort of show who you are as a personality, do an impression, do some funny bits. This was the best thing that Nando ever did for our show was, he introduced us, and this was years ago, Fantasy Feud and Fantasy Jeopardy. And, we were just doing some wacky things. We had one of our colleagues, she was dressed as the devil, and she was the fantasy devil. And anytime you said something bad, you got to talk to the devil. We did hand puppets. We were just trying to be different from ESPN and Yahoo and those sites. And so anytime you can set yourself apart, and attract that type of audience, that's gonna get your name out there and get you a little bit more attention. But just keep your heads down, grind, write, podcast. Everybody who has a passion for this is going to do great work, but you want to sort of be that star that shines through, and it's hard to do, but that's the thing you got to sort of set yourself out from. I know for me, I got in ahead of all of this explosion, and if I was not ahead of it, I'd probably be struggling, just because there's so many great people in this industry, and it's hard to sort of stand out that way.
I love that you mentioned the whole rising star aspect, because on the bottom of the screen, we got both Major and Tera, who are absolutely rising stars when it comes to this industry, doing great things. As far as Tera's got her own, and Jamey, you know what it's like to do a solo show. So
Yep.
She's got a little 3-minute clips that she does by herself.
That's
on
great.
a player solo, and it's been absolutely fantastic. Major, you're going to go over to that Clubhouse if that thing still exists. I don't know if Clubhouse is coming or going anymore, but he's on there, and he's got some rooms that he runs and moderates and stuff like that. Gets that conversation going. I know he's got some plans here, some NFL news that came down tonight that he's going to talk about tomorrow. Some real talk when it comes to football
That's
as
great.
well. So they're doing great things. Jamey, what are you doing right now with CBS Sports? What do you guys got going on?
Our podcast is going strong all off season, so check it out, on our YouTube page, and obviously wherever podcasts are found. Like I said, we're finishing up our magazines and getting that out to newsstands. Our first edition is out now. We partner with Beckett Media. So for those of you that still like magazines and just like the aspect of reading it, obviously a lot of the information changes, but the feature stories in there are great. And then our CBS Sports HQ show, our video show starts in full when training camp starts. So, now's the quiet before the storm. So, you guys keep grinding. I'm going to make sure I check these out, and, hopefully have you guys on some of our shows as well, at least part of our drafts, to help you guys out as best as we can, because I think you guys do a great job, and, people should know more about you. So, but, for us, it's just, the same thing, a lot of it year over year, CBS Sports HQ and our podcast.
Appreciate that.
One last question, Jamey. What are you doing for the 4th of July?
Hopefully sleeping. Get my kids to sleep. It's I don't know yet. I'm sure we'll do something. My older one goes to sleepaway camp for the first time the week after the 4th of July. So I'm sure we'll be getting ready for that. But probably go check out some fireworks somewhere, hopefully. And it's nice that the world's getting back to normal a little bit. So that'll be fun. What about you guys? What are you gonna do?
I think one of my kids is going to visit family, so I think I'll only have one. But yeah, I think we'll do fireworks, maybe a little. I want to learn how to grill. I don't know how to grill, and I know that's huge in the fantasy community. We've got a nice grill, and it never gets used. So I want to. I want someone to teach me, help me figure out how to use a grill.
That's what I was gonna do. I was gonna just barbecue,
Yep.
fireworks. But I was gonna say that first night that the kids sleep away, it was so much more stressful for me than it was for my daughter. It was like she was like, "Peace." I was like, don't do that, don't do this. Here's your phone. Don't do that. It's like I was stressed, but yeah, hopefully you got that under control.
I hope so.
Yeah, I would love it if my kids all slept away. That'd be fantastic. As far as the 4th of July goes, I'll probably be doing absolutely nothing on the 4th of July, because we really don't celebrate that up here north of the 49 here in Canada. So we are going camping, not this week, but next week. So that's kind of what we'll be doing. I don't know if you understand what camping with 6 kids between a certain age group is, but yeah, it's no. We'll leave it at that.
My wife, she went camping with my in-laws, and I've never been camping. She was a little bit more of a outdoors person growing up. She grew up in Pennsylvania. I grew up in South Florida. And so she was like, "Oh, we're gonna go camping. Do you think you could take any time off in December?" And I was like, "No, unfortunately, I can't." And they had a great time, but my kids came back. They're all bitten up by mosquitoes. There was issues with the lights, with the food. There was something, problem. And I'm like, you guys go have a great time next time. Just keep going. So my 9-year-old is going camping with his cousin and my brother-in-law this weekend. So hopefully they have a great time. I'll be away with my other son in a baseball tournament.
Nice.
And then just to kind of close this whole and wrap it all up, I love that the CBS crew has got nothing but respect coming from me, from, like you said, yourself and Dave and Heath. You guys always seem to be paying it forward. And in this industry, that means so much to those just getting started, those who are struggling to make a name for themselves, and those that are just having fun. Like, a simple retweet, a DM or something like that, it goes so far. We've kind of talked about that on the show before in the past. And we hope that we can pay it forward down the road as well at some point. And, given that opportunity, that platform as well, I think is so important. And like we're talking Scott Fishbowl, it's that time of the year. It's that giving kind of season. And that's probably the most important thing I get with the Scott Fishbowl is that charitable aspect. Everyone seems to be in that giving mood. And that's not just finances. You don't have to be charitable with your finances. You can be charitable with your time, charitable with your compliments. A simple smile could go a long way in someone's day, right? So I just want to make sure we reiterate that as we close out the show tonight. And typically I close out the show, but I really feel that tonight is a little bit special, and we should almost have like Bobby Boucher close out the show for us and sign us off. What do you guys think?
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure. Don't tell Mama, because she doesn't like it when I talk about the football. Because she thinks it's the devil, and certainly don't tell her that I mentioned Vicky Valancourt, because she certainly is not going to be thrilled about that. But this was a lot of fun. I do appreciate it. This is like the best quality H2O that I've ever had. It was that delightful. So thank you once again for having me on.